Insert is pretty self-explanatory. You have your page break here, which is one you use a lot to ensure that the document looks the way you want it to look. You have your table here, so that's where you add tables, which I'll get into that in a separate video. You can add a picture, charts, graphics, all sorts of things. So you can go through here and play around with these a little bit. Page number is really important and very useful. Text box is like a floating box if you wanted to put text in just one area or do a sidebar kind of thing like that. Word art is kind of fun. It gives you your text is here, so how fun is this? And then you can go here to text effects and pick something kind of cool. Okay, and the other one, you can place it in different areas. You can change how it wraps with the text. You can rotate it. Lots of choices on this one. Shape outline, so that would be the letters and how they fill. So lots of cool stuff with word art. And you can see this is called a contextual tab, which means whenever I'm in something that is not related to just a basic file, you get what's called a contextual tab. So it's kind of awesome. Okay, kind of got a little off track there. Where was I? I was in insert. Okay, so that's word art. Symbols are handy. All kinds of common things that you might need. Plus you can click that and search more. Okay, design. I already talked a little bit about that. This is where you would set your styles first, and you can also go with a different color scheme, which is very handy. Also, you can see it comes up with a separate tab. Page layout. This is everything that has to do with how the entire page looks. And so you can change the text direction. And that's kind of interesting. Let's just Control Z and undo that. Hello. Margins are here. A lot of times if I can't make things fit, I will adjust the margins, going here to custom, and then just barely change them, top and bottom, or right and left. I will caution you that English teachers know when you've made your margins fatter to try to make paper longer or shorter. So I wouldn't I wouldn't try to wing that, because we can see it and we know it like right away. Okay, portrait and landscape, two different ways of setting your paper. I don't change that too much because I don't use those other sizes. Columns. You highlight what you want to be columned and then change it here. This can get a little bit confusing because if for some reason you accidentally delete that, now all of a sudden this is not how you want it to be. This is when Control Z comes in handy, walking it all the way back out. Okay, here are the different kinds of breaks you can have. A page break, text wrapping, lots of different stuff you can do with breaks. I typically just use the page break. Indents, so we'll just show you how those work here. So that's a left and pushing it in from the right, which means making that it only can go so far. Let me just change that back to 0. Okay, spacing before and after is important. So this will work if I just use this part. And the default is 10 after, which I don't know. On my home computer, I don't have it set that way. I have it set to 0. So this is a true single space. If you do Control 2, it'll be a true double space. But it has to have the spacing before and after set to 0, and that's important. If you are writing something though and you want it to be spaced out just a little bit after each paragraph, that's what the after feature would do. You can see how it's just, let me change it to single space, it's easier to see it. You can see how after each paragraph this line gets longer. That line right there, that's 18 after, and you can see it because the gray goes down so far. The opposite of that would be to put the spacing above, which you can absolutely do, and that comes in handy when you're working on a resume or something and you want to spread things out. Now you can see how this goes way above the text. That's the 18 points. Okay, so that's layout. References, that's a whole video in itself. There's two camps on this. Some people really love it and they use it a lot, and other people find it confusing. I have used tables, insert captions with success. I like the citations. You have to watch, make sure they do it correctly. There's table contents. If you write a long paper, using the table of contents here is very helpful. And honestly, if we don't cover that in this class and you need it, this is kind of one of those things where you only use it every once in a while. So I would go to YouTube and watch a video, and I would search on table of contents Word 2013, and I bet you'll find about 700 videos, and I'm sure you can find a good one in there to refresh your memory and then use that feature. Kind of the same thing with labels. I don't run labels much. I think the last time I ran labels I was getting married, when that was like 15 years ago. So it is a handy feature. It does exist, but it's just one of those things I don't use very much, and unless your job requires it. Being a student, I don't see that you would use it much for college. Review, on the other hand, you'll use all the time. So thesaurus is here, which is very handy. So here's the word document that I highlighted, and it gives me different options. Let's see, video. Oh, okay, maybe I could just have to type it in here. And it gives you lots of options. The other way to do it is to right-click on the word and go here to synonyms, which is exactly the same. So for feature, it gives me eye, nose, mouth, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Could be article. Anyway, fun is a good one. Lots of options there for synonyms. I use that feature a lot. I'll write a paper and I'll use all the words that come into my brain, you know, just naturally. And if I reread it when I'm proofreading it and I find I'm using a lot of the same word, then I use this feature to make sure that every 3 or 4 words I'm using something different instead of repeating some particular word. Okay. Track changes is important. So when you click this on, you can see how it's grayed. It's now going to document any changes you make. So here it's put in the word paper and it's given it a red line. Now it's interesting. I'm going to put on show markup. Okay, that's so this shows me what the revisions are over here. Track changes. Okay, that was that. That's interesting. This has some new features in it. I'm going to change this to original. Oh, look at that. It just dropped it right back to the original. All markup. There we go. That's the one I like. Okay. Click track changes on. Make sure this shows all markup. This is how I would do it if someone asked me to edit a paper. So you can see your revisions over here in this pane, but also through the paper they get a line and they get the red text where you've made changes. And now when they, this would be if you were editing someone else's paper. And this, if you turn a paper into the online writing lab, whether you use the in-person or online, I think they do this feature also. I know they do with the online. You can go through and look at, you would take the track changes off and go here to look at the changes. So first I would click next and it would take me to the first change they made. And I could say, I could reject it or accept it. Accept and move to the next. And then I can decide, do I want that or not? And so I could reject and move to the next. So I just got rid of the word altogether. So obviously you probably wouldn't do that. So you're probably going to go something like accept and accept. So that's a nice feature to use, especially if you have somebody really good who's going to be looking at your papers. The View tab is pretty important. I think you should spend some time here looking at everything. To start, you have all these different ways to look at a document. And so I would encourage you to check those out. I use Print Layout pretty much exclusively. I rarely go into the other ones. I do use the ruler feature a lot, and this just allows me to see where the lines are starting and where they're ending. Those are your indents. And if you select the text, you can move your indents here to change the way it's wrapping on the page. This would be your top indent. Then this triangle would be your bottom one. If you want to move them together, then you grab the little box on the bottom. Okay, grid lines and navigation pane, which I don't use that too much. Zoom is handy, but I tend to use the zoom down here in the corner. It's much faster. And you can look at multiple pages, go the width of the monitor. One of the new features is view side by side. So you can switch between windows. This shows me I have two documents open. So you can switch between them like this. View, switch windows. Or you can view them side by side. And so it automatically puts the two documents next to each other. Now this is different than right-clicking in your taskbar. This is your taskbar down here, and saying show windows side by side. This works if you have different windows open in different programs. So these both are Microsoft Word documents, but let's say you also have a web page open and you want to look at something on the web page with also your two documents. When you're going to tile or view items in multiple applications, you use show windows side by side. And so that stacks all three of them across your monitor. Now on the small monitor, that doesn't look so great, but on a big monitor, it's fantastic. Okay, so minimize this down, and I'll go side by side. Or you could use this one. Another feature that I really like is this here, which is scrolling. So you can scroll one thing at a time, or you can click the second button here, synchronous scrolling, and now they move together. Pretty slick, huh? Another thing you see here is that you don't have all your buttons because the monitor is, cut in half. Each document has half the monitor. So to see all your buttons, you have to go full screen so you can really see everything. Okay, I think that's plenty to get you started. Thank you for your attention. I know it's long, this first grand tour of Microsoft Word, but there's lots of great features. So I'm excited to see your work.